Hello, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm very pleased to see everyone and welcome to the 49th edition of New Director, New Film, rescheduled from the month of March and finally on screen with you. My name is Florence Mosini. I'm a programmer at Filmmaking Center and one of the members of the selection committee for New Director, New Film. I'm very pleased to be speaking with the director Maya Da-Rin about her film, The Fever, which was one of my really favorite film that I saw last year. I saw it in Locarno and it went through festivals. And it's something that I really cherished from the first time I saw it. And I'm really glad that we were able to invite it in the festival and to be discussing the film, its process with the director, Maya. So Maddie, you want to say just hi and then we'll start with deep questions.
Yeah, hello everyone that are watching us. Thank you very much, Florence, for your words and introduction and for this chat, the possibility of talking a little bit about the film today. I hope you have had a good screening. It's sad that we cannot be together, that I cannot come to New York to present the film personally. But on the other hand, I'm really, really happy with the invitation of the festival and the possibility of screening the film to the festival audience and to be able to have this moment and this exchange with you. So I hope that soon we'll be able to be in the same cinema again, watching different movies, and hopefully it will not take very long.
I hope so too. Before we start with the question, I wanted to mention good news. The film has been picked up for US distribution by Kim. So audience will have more chances to see the film after the festival. And it's always great to see, like art film, foreign film, having a longer life than just a festival setting. So thank you to Kim for picking up good movies as always. I wanted maybe to start a little bit the conversation with your filmmaking skills, because you have mostly a background as a documentarian, and this is your first feature film, first work of fiction. So when we see the film, we see a lot of the way you work, the way you cast the people, the way you shoot, that is really a mix of documentary and fiction. So is it something that you knew you were going to develop like from the beginning when you were working on the script, but you were going to keep like a close eye on reality? Or is it something that came along when you started to work?
I believe that The Fever is actually really a fiction film, but I come from a documentary trajectory, and somehow I have a very my way of working is very informed by documentary. So preparation is very important for me. The whole development of a film, I believe that for me, most of a lot of things happen during preparation. It's really a moment that I enjoy a lot, and it normally it revolves around a documentary process in the sense that it comes with a lot of conversations and with being in the places I'm going to shoot afterwards. So I had already shoot 2 other documentaries in the Amazon region, but another region in the Amazon, more in the southeast of the Amazon, in the frontier between Brazil, Colombia, and Peru. And it was during the shooting of these 2 different films that I started to think about the possibility of making a fiction film, and that the first ideas for The Fever started to arise. And it was back in 2006, so a long time ago. And then I've made different films after that, different projects, some installations also. And then I started to write the project for The Fever in 2013. And then I had 5 years of development with a lot of long stays in Manaus, where the film is shot. And normally I would come to Manaus. I stay for 2 months, 1 month, 3 months, depends each time, with one of my co-writers, Miguel Sebra Lopes, or with my sound designer, Felipe Musil. And together during these periods, I started to choose the locations in which I would come to shoot, and then I usually stayed for quite some time in these places. So we have stayed for some weeks in the port where Justino works, following the day-to-day work routine of the port workers. Also in one health center in the outskirts of Manaus, also following the work routine of the nurses that work there. And we have been also in different indigenous communities in Manaus and around the city. So urban communities, no? And during this period, I've met many different people, and most we have been talking, and I believe that these encounters have informed and formed a lot of the script. So the script comes a lot from being with people and listen to them and talking with them, and in this sense, I can think that there is something very documental in the film, in the sense that came from a lot of observation and also from the experience of being in the places and being affected by the places. And Manaus is a really humid and warm city, so there is something about the climate that also is very important for the film, and about the sound and the way the industrial sound and the proximity with the forest and how the sonority that this proximity, it has a very specific sonority that also is very present in the film. So all these things, it comes to me during preparation with my collaborators, with the people that I worked with. And it's really a moment that I enjoy a lot, because the moment that we can take the time to find out which film is this films that we're making, and we have really the time to and the freedom to build it and to find it together.
I mean, it's for me, it's very complimentary to see the way you manage to interact, your approach to documentary, and going in a different direction with fiction, because it is a work of fiction in many different ways, but also the way you show the people, the inhabitants, the native inhabitants. It has a very, very close eye to reality. And I feel I know them. I feel I am going in their stories, especially Justino, played by Regis Miropu, which is really, really great, and his daughter, Vanessa. So I was really curious to know a little bit more about how you were working with them. If you, I mean, you have a mix of professional and non-professional, I believe, in the film. Mm-hmm. So how did you manage to get them to work with you? Was the direction different? Did you interact some stories directly, from the old lady at the hospital who speaks in a native language, but no one seems to understand her, because there's many, many different languages in addition to the Portuguese. So I was wondering if you can mention if your documentary approach was useful for that, or if you had to create more and bring people into your world.
Mm-hmm. You were saying that you had the feeling that there was something that from the documentary in the film, that because you had the feeling that you knew the people, no? Mm-hmm. And I think that this is more due to I think this happens when you have really good actors, and in the film, Regis, which was the first time he was playing in a film, Rosa, that makes the role of Vanessa, she had already took part of some short films as extra or as a side role, but it was the first time that she had a more important role in a theater film. And the other characters, the other actors that play the characters from the family of Justino, it was also the first time that they were playing a fiction film. Then we had some professional actors that had more experience, that have been taking part of different films, not in the family, not the actors that are part of Justino family, but the other side actors of the film. And it was a really interesting process of working together, because The casting has been quite a long process. We have been casting for more than a year, and I have been meeting around 500 people before I could meet Justino and Regis and Rosa, and find Justino and Vanessa. So I have been going around these different communities and talking a lot with people again. So it was, again, a process that was also something that has been really, even though we had already a more mature version of the script when I started casting, the script carried on being written during this whole process and also during a rehearsal. And so during the casting, after the casting, we had 2 months of rehearsal, and it has been a really important moment for the film. It is the moment that the film, that the scenes actually started to take form. And as most of the scenes with the indigenous actors were in Tucano, in their native language, we were always, traduction was very important in this process also. So we worked a lot with improvisation. We had some elements from the script. We decided what we wanted to keep together. Then we would work together the scenes. We would start working in Portuguese. We'd go back to Tucano. Then the scene would be transformed by them. They would find their own words in Tucano for the scene, and then when they present the scene for me in Tucano, the scene would come very different than it was initially, almost always, because I believe that a language is not only a way through which we communicate something, but it forms a system of thought, of thinking, you know, and it's also going to influence a lot our physical posture, the rhythm, the moments of the poses. So a lot of a scene is changed when a new language comes, no? And with the Tucano, also a new system of thought come, a new comprehension of the word also came. So sometimes even the meaning of the scene would change. And this was a very interesting process. It was a moment that I lost completely control of what was going on. And then I would receive something else. And then we would look to that and think together what we'd like to keep, what we thought that we had already achieved or not. And this together with the other actors from the family, you know, the other indigenous actors. And it was a very interesting process in which I have learned a lot, because what was very strong in this whole process is because the cultures of the upper Black River, that is the region from which the actors come from, they are all oral cultures. So they are very used of passing knowledge from one generation through the other, through with the word, no? And so for that, they have a very strong memory, and they don't have the same relation with the script and with the paper that we do have. Mm-hmm. So they don't feel more secure necessarily because the words are in the paper or because they have a script in their hands. They feel more secure when the words and the scene are somehow incorporated by them. And this is a very, very rich way of working for actors also. And that's why they are so great actors, I believe, because they are really present, listening and saying, because they have been used for so long to listen to others and to retransmit that knowledge again to others and others. And it's a kind of relation with knowledge and respect to the other that's in front of you, saying and giving something to you, that I believe that somehow in our society we have lost. We are in such a speed that we don't take the time to listen to the other anymore. So actors can have a really hard time because when we don't listen to what the other is saying to us, it's very difficult for us to be present in that scene. And maybe that's why you had that feeling also, I don't know, but for me it was really a strong process in which I have learned a lot, and it has been really pleasant to work with them in that sense.
It seemed a very interesting way of for you also to work and to learn and to share, more than just directing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a life experience that goes very, very deep.
For sure. And then when I came back from each day of rehearsal, I would note what have changed. I would make my notes, and then we had a script for shooting, but that it wasn't a script that they would need to have on their hands, because it was my notes in Portuguese. The scenes would be in Tucano, and then in the moment of shooting, the scenes would again be remade and remodeled and would have a new shape in the shooting, even though there are lots of things that were quite precise in the timing, in the rhythm, and that was important for us, that would be like that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I wanted to talk a little bit more about, in addition to this documentary approach, you have a lot of an oniric way, like a world of dreams, a world of mysteries that's very interconnected. So is this something also that you knew you were gonna do, but it brings a very unsettling way of watching the film, and I find it extremely interesting, and I love that aspect of the film. It's you have something that's very real, which is the disappearance of people, of a culture, of a world that it's probably not going to be able to come back. But you also have something that's very feverish, that's very oniric, that's very dreamy, and it's all mixed and interacted together. So can you talk a little bit more about that choice and process?
Yeah, it has been always part of the film. The film somehow was born together with this element that is very important for many different Amerindian cultures, but especially for the people of Upper Rio Negro, of this region of the north of Amazon, in which actually dream and reality are not really separate. Separate. How I could say. Regimes. I don't know the exactly word in English, but and things are really intertwined. So dreams have dreams are always acting in the real, in the material and concrete life, and it's also through the dreams that people understand many different things, also related to illness, for example. So the dreams, it's a moment that people can establish a connection with other beings, different beings, and it's also a moment that, that thinks that these different stages of reality are going to cross each other. Mm-hmm. And that's why dreams are so important to most of these different societies, and the shamans, the people, the healing people. For the healing people, also, the dream is a very important. So the dreams narrative, as the one we have in the film, are very special narratives for the Upper Rio Negro people. And this is something that really interested me, in the sense of a different comprehension of the world, different from ours. No, our comprehension is very limited, in the sense that we have established so many different hierarchies. No, mm-hmm. We, the humans, in the top, and all the other beings somehow below us. And for the Amerindian people, the beings are we are sharing life with all different beings, and their lives is affecting our lives, and our lives is directly affecting their lives, as we see in the world always, and even more nowadays. So the relation with other forms of lives and other beings are very important, and it forms the politic. So the politic is mostly formed, and that's why we talked so much of a cosmopolitic, a politic it's a cosmo that's going to include a lot more forms of lives than our politic, in which normally only the humans are the ones acting on it. And then for that, the dreams are very important. And illness also have is also playing on these relations, because in the moment that these relations are not equilibrated anymore, are not balanced anymore, then illness can come. So there are different kinds of illness, but there are also different spiritual illness that are related with the relation we establish with other forms of life.
Yeah. The story that Justino is telling his nephew, is that, like the myth, is that something that you find? That something that is a true myth, or something that you wrote?
Yes, when we were rehearsing, we started telling stories to each other. And then we have told many different stories, because it was also a way of sharing our different backgrounds, because each one of us came from a different background. Even the indigenous actors, they came from different villages in the Upper Rio Negro region, and they had different stories of lives. Some of them knew each other before, some didn't. So it was a way that we could share these stories between us, and that we could understand which was the story that we wanted to tell. No, and even though if it was a proposition that I've made to them, we had already a script. It was a script written by me, by Miguel and Predo, two other collaborators I had. We carry on writing together this script during the rehearsal. So we need to understand which was the story we wanted to tell. And then during these stories we were sharing with each other, many things appeared, and this story that Justino tells to his grandson was one of them. Regis, it was a story that Regis brought that was very, very present when in his family. It was a story that he had heard many times before, and that for some other actors was also an important story that was also very present to them. So as it related very directed with some themes and elements that will work in the film, we decided to incorporate it. So we created that scene. And it's a scene in which he's giving food to his grandson at the same time that he's talking about this hunter that is so how do we say it in English? He wants so much more than he has. That he goes to hunt even though he has a lot of food in his house, and then the monkey takes him from to his own world, and then he's going to learn when he arrived there that he can heal the monkeys. So instead of killing them, instead of finishing with their lives, he can give them the possibility of have more health, of not suffering anymore. So he understands that he can heal a teeth that is aging, or that he can take something that is making the others suffer. And it again is a very important element of the Sana culture, in the sense of the relation and the interference we have in the ambient we live, and with the other forms of lives that live together with us.
I wanted to ask you about the symptom of Justino, like the way he internalize his feelings and his pain, because he's going through, like, he's going to lose his daughter in a way, and everything is internal. So he doesn't say much, but he has weird symptoms that are appearing that could reflect also the disappearance of an entire population. But in the contrast to this, you have an externalization of things, where this wild beast that is real or is not real. It depends how people would want to see the film and what you're saying, but it leaves some ambiguity with that. So I really like the way you have this sort of duality with two worlds, which is the internal world that is completely inside of Justino, and then all these external things that are real or not real. And it kind of follow a little bit what you were saying earlier with interacting with the people you were working with.
Yeah, again, I think that it goes again to the same question when we're talking about dreaming and reality and how things are intertwined. And the same thing I would say for the internal world of someone. Something that we would call subjectivity. That's a word that does not make the same sense, I would say, for the Amerindian cultures as it does to Western culture, in the sense that they are cultures that they are organized through the collectivity, and the idea of an individual subjective and subjectivity and individuality, in this sense, is a very central concept for our modern Western society, wouldn't play and the same role and have the same interest for the Desana people. I think that Regis could talk a lot better about that than me, but I would say exteriority and interiority, it's a lot more crossed and it's a lot more blurred. There is not such a thing as an internal world separated from an external world. And things are always in contact, and they are very dependent from each other, and they are a lot more, they move a lot more. They are not so fixed elements, and so I believe that the film somehow tries to organize its narrative elements in this way also, in the sense that there are things from the external world that are playing over Justino, and also Justino playing over them. So Justino is hunting in the same time that he's being hunted by this creature. Now, this creature is an animal, but there is something of human in it also, and people are going to have very different readings about that. And I found that very interesting when I talk with indigenous people in the public that have watched the film. They are going to have would have a very different perception, more related to some elements or some cosmological elements from Amerindian cultures and the Sana people, and a non-indigenous audience is going to have their own perceptions and readings that's going to be more symbolic and more metaphorical, while this kind of concept of symbolism and metaphor is not something that plays the same role for most of the indigenous audience. Things are a lot more interconnected. So it's very interesting for me that the film can have different way of accessing it, and it's going to the film is alive, and that's going to be a different film for each person that's watching it. I find
but
it
like I saw it more than once, and I didn't see the film the same way every time. So it's not just different people, it's different when you see it. If you're like connecting more with legends and trying to imagine yourself like being native over there, and like it's like it's a beast. Or when sometimes, like the first time I saw it was definitely more metaphoric, and then I evolved with the film. So the film is alive, like something. When you watch it again, you're gonna have a different reaction, just like when you meet people and you have a different conversation. So it's and it's fairly rare to get this experience when we're watching movies. So I thought it was really
nice. I'm happy to hear that. That you had this feeling watching it for the second time.
And I would have loved to see it with a lively, like a live audience who would see it in different ways also, because there's so many different interpretations that could go at different parts. But there's also like an epic story to the trajectory of Justino. The way also you depict like racism in around him and around Vanessa is also, it's very subtle, but it's very frontal at times, and it's very touching. And the way he's reacting to it and the way she's reacting to it are, like they're a little bit of a stiffer, but you feel for them. I really like the way you were able to work on that too. It's also very very subtle, but very moving at the same time. without being sentimental.
Yeah, sometimes the racism that can be subtle to us, that to people that do not suffer racism in the same way as can be very, very violent to people that are dealing with that on their daily lives. No, because it's not only one time; it's something that repeats itself and that becomes kind of acceptable. So the acceptable racism, I think that's one of the most violent ones.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's like you would feel it nearly comes from like, it's so normal, or it comes from like a good place, the way we're talking to him. And it's just like so cringy because it sounds so harsh. And you're like, well, I don't think you're thinking about what you're saying because it's hurtful. But do you see with like Vanessa would have maybe an easier way of dealing with this or a more frontal way of responding?
I think that they come from different generations, and this plays a very important role on that, in the sense that people from the age of Justino, in Brazil, it has been a generation that has made a big movement of coming to the cities. So, and then the generation of Vanessa, there are many people of nowadays with 20, 25 that have already grown in cities, in our urban life. And it's also something that also plays on it is the historical and political moments of Brazil. We came from a very long dictatorship, and then we had a moment of democracy in Brazil that now is being challenged again. So it has been, we could say, a short democracy, but that the generation of Vanessa grew on that period. And on that period, we had first the Constitution of 88, in which the rights for indigenous people were for the first time assured. So indigenous people were considered citizens of Brazil for the first time, that only on 88. So you can imagine how much have changed from there. And then in the last 20 years in Brazil, we had different, and for the first time, we had policies for minorities in Brazil. So Vanessa, when she goes to study medicine in Brasilia, she goes together with many indigenous people, could go on that moment to study, and now they are formed, they are working in different professions in Brazil. Also because we had policies of quotas that would admit indigenous people and incentive, I don't know exactly the right word in English, but yeah, we had different policies for inclusion of indigenous people, of Black people, of minorities in the education systems in Brazil. And this is being discontinued right now. But it has been very important during the moment that it has happened. And we hope that soon we'll be able to have these measures again coming back. So it's a generation that have different tools to fight, very different tools from the ones from Justino. The generation from Justino, many people, they do not read and write in Portuguese, for example. They didn't have access for scholarization in Portuguese, and they come from languages that are from cultures that are oral cultures. So the possibility of reading is something that gives you a different tool when you are living in a city and when you need to defend yourself from a system that can be very, very, very violent against minorities as it has always happened in Brazil. So I believe that's more due to these different generations and to the political moments in which each of them grew and the possibilities that they had. With Vanessa herself.
I wanted to go back a little bit about the filming and the cinematography. The movie has a lot of night and dark scenes. very often with low lights. And I wanted to hear from you, like what was the process and the collaboration on the with people who are working on the images and the DP, and how you managed to get such a vibrant night dark scenes, which is difficult to achieve.
Mm-hmm. This was something that has come since the beginning of the project, and that me and Barbara Alvarez, our DP, we have talked a lot about that, and we have been researching and inquiring in how we could make the night scenes. We also had different night scenes in the forest, and then we had a lot of challenges of equipment and having the sources of light, and Barbara made a great work because she works with really not a lot of equipment. She worked with the less she can. It was something important for us in this film also, because we didn't want to have a very big structure. We want to be as small as possible. And it's always a challenging cinema. We always grew more than we want to. It's quite common, and then for us it was very for me it was very interesting to see also the way that Barbara lightened the scenes, and how with just a little bit we could already have so much contour and so much in the. So yes, we have worked quite a lot on trying to find the balance also between the night scenes and the daylight scenes, no? And the night scenes for me were very important because it's also about, the film is a lot about what we don't see, about what we cannot see, and how we can imagine from there, no? And also the night scenes gave a different space for the sound to be worked. The sound could come with a different presence, and that was also very important for the film, as it was through the sound that we build a lot of Justino interiority and of Justino personal world, and the moment of perturbation that he's living, it's very present in the sound. It's not something that I could bring towards that he could verbalize, and the sound was a way of sharing what's happening inside him. So the low light scenes also made possible that the sound could come with a different presence, I believe.
Well, I will not ask more questions about the sound because you just answered it perfectly well. Maybe I'm going to ask one last question. I mean, it's a very long process, so I'm sure where you were working, like when you started working on it to the end, many different things could have affected the way you worked and the way you were thinking. But in terms of other influences, or maybe like cinema, at some point, the film made me think a little bit of Apichatpong, was it cool because of the way you mix the dream and the jungle also. I love jungle movies in general. Was there anything that you were thinking of, not maybe necessarily as a pure influence, but things that changed the way you wanted to, seeing other works, not necessarily in films, but maybe in films, that made you want to change the film you wanted to make?
Apichatpong, I believe that the first time I've seen a film of Apichatpong, it was Tropical Malady, and I watched it in the cinema, and it has been really a very strong experience for me. And I believe that all the night scenes in the forest, they had stayed with me for a very long time. And yes, I believe that they had influenced the fever also, in the sense that there is a space that Apichatpong creates in the forest, and with the beings of the forest and the relations between these beings, that was something very special, and that we're not very used to watch that on cinema, on films before. But in Brazil, we have a very strong production of indigenous filmmakers, in which this is very present also, and we are very lucky to have this cinematography in Brazil. And and it's also due to the last 20 years and to the possibilities we had in culture and the incentives we had to make that possible. Also to different projects like the video in the villages from Van Sancarelli that had formed many indigenous filmmakers, and nowadays we have really great films being made, and some of them have been an important reference for the film. There are films of two filmmakers called Sueli and Isael Machacali that have been important reference for the fever, and we also, I think, different films made by different filmmakers in Brazil had also been. And well, we could talk for a long time about that because the film were crossed by so many different elements. There is a film called The Exile from Kenty Mackenzie that follows an indigenous family that lives in LA, I believe in the end of the 50s, beginning of the 60s.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a beautiful film. And then there is White Dog from Samuel Fuller, and there is The Leopard Man from Tourneau, and there is well, different elements. Also, a lot of what's being taught by very important indigenous thinkers in Brazil. So we have Ailton Krenak, David Koppenauer. We have different people that have been kind of shaking our ways of thinking in a very positive way here. And I believe that all these elements have crossed. We also have nowadays a very strong generation of artists in Brazil, indigenous artists that are making very incredible works, and some of them from the region from which the film was from which the characters come. So this was also a imagetic reference for the film. So the film was made from kind of, I would say, of crossing or bigger cosmos of elements and ideas that came together and that came across me during its development.
Thank you. I hope you will not take 10 years to make your next project. But I'm really glad that we were able to talk about your film, and I'm really glad that Kim's team will release a film so that more people will have a chance to see it and to hear you talk about it too. I don't know if you have any final words, but I have no more question for you right now.
Thanks a lot, Florence, for this great conversation. It has been really a pleasure. Well, in Brazil, we are living a very hard moment in culture in Brazil nowadays. So we don't know exactly how we are going to make our next projects, how we're going to be able to finance them. I hope that in the next years, things are going to start to change, but it's still a very difficult moment that we're living right now. So let's hope. And it has been really, really a pleasure. Thank you a lot for your questions.
Thank you so much, Maya.